All right, today's the day. Today we are gonna finally come and swap Merlin. I bought him about a week ago. Exactly a week ago. I got him last Sunday, and today's Sunday. So I spent the last couple of days going through the logistics of everything, making sure that I have like all the hardware, all of the parts and everything. There are a few things I'm missing, but I think I can get him started by the end of this week. So, but that doesn't mean running, because I don't have like the stuff for brakes yet, and like there's like drive lines might be an issue. So, but outside of that, I might be able to get the motor and transmission all mounted up and plumbed and everything. So, yeah, anyways, there's a lot of mysteries to go forward. Like for example, the radiator and intercooler, I'm still having questions about that, but I won't be able to answer those until we move on. So now's the time to get started. The first things first, I'm going to finally install this motor inside this truck. I don't even have to make custom engines mounts, and guess why? Because my first gen has the exact same engine mounts as this frame right here in this truck. So it's going to be full bolt-on parts. There's like no modification necessary. So I find that awesome. I'm so excited, and that's why I think this is gonna be so smooth of a process. So anyways, without further ado, I'm just gonna start mounting this thing. We're going to get this thing put in there, and yeah, we'll just go from there. I can't believe how good this thing looks in here. Dude, it fits like a glove. Like everything about it looks like it's like factory made. All with the first gen cab mount, or not cab mounts, engine mounts, excuse me. But seriously, it's got the perfect amount of space between the firewall. Like it's got a solid 2 to 3 inches, and it fits in here so well. I think it looks awesome in here. Okay, now that the motor is installed, I'm gonna start installing all the accessories like the injection pump, the power steering pump, the lift pump, you know, all that good stuff. But before I can do everything, I'm going to have to pull the camshaft on this truck because, well, I'll have to explain later. It's kind of difficult to describe in words. Yeah, anyways, I'm just gonna start putting on the accessories on this motor, and we're gonna get this thing dressed, and then we'll start working on the transmission side afterwards. So let's get into it. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really like this valve cover, just because like with the red, like it just does not match this truck. This actually came off my dad's truck originally, which I have a video on that if you want to see that. That's in the links in the description on that. But yeah, so we also swapped on bigger injectors, and after driving it, we decided they were too big for him. He didn't really like them. So I'm gonna use them on this truck, and we'll just heavily detune it because I have a mechanical tuner for this. So yeah, we're also gonna swap those on, and we're also gonna have to lift up the tappets to pull the camshaft out. And if you don't really know what that means, don't worry about it. You'll see in a second. I wish I had a tappet to show you guys so it'd be more clear for you guys. But the way it works is you have this wood dowel, because we pulled the entire rocker assembly off. We're gonna use this wood dowel, and we're gonna push it down where the push rod normally goes. And then you put it inside the tappet, and then you sort of just slam it down. And then you have access to pull the tappet up. That way you can pull the camshaft out without having any sort of thing in the way. The only other way to pull the camshaft out is to flip the motor upside down, but because that's not doable inside the truck, you have to lift the tappets up so that way you can freely pull the camshaft out. I can't do that right now. The machine shop's not open, and I don't want to leave the motor open all night. So I'm going to put the valve cover back on, or the new one at least, and we'll do this in the morning. We're just gonna let it rest on there for now. All right, so I'm gonna further explain so I don't look like a total idiot. So this right here, this little black thing that these wood dowels are going into is called a tappet. The tappet looks like an upside down T, and it sits on the camshaft. And as the camshaft rotates, it has lobes that move it up and down like that. And so the reason why we have them all pulled up is that way we can pull the cam out. Pull this gear case cover off. All right, so the camshaft retainer bolts are not visible, so I have to rotate the motor. The cam bolts are visible, we can pull these out. All right, so I got to run the machine shop to get those cam gears swapped over to this other cam I have. So I'll be back in a bit, and we'll get this thing installed after I get back. So I'll be back in a while. All right, we got back from the machine shop, and I'm going to show you why we had to swap the camshaft. So if you look at the camshaft where I'm pointing at, this one doesn't have a lobe. And that lobe that is on the other one, we're using the one with the lobe. We need that lobe because that lobe goes to the mechanical lift pump, which bolts into the side of the block as seen in this picture. And it's like a little plunger that pushes against the camshaft back and forth in order to pump. And so that's why I needed to swap the camshaft, because I want to use a mechanical lift pump. Because mechanical mafia, baby! Anywho, we're gonna install this camshaft, and then we're gonna start installing like the injection pump, and then like the lift pump and everything. So let's get into it. Yes, I did lube it already. I'm not gonna lie, this job's kind of hard because it's like one giant key. And you need to get it precisely through all the bores for it to go all the way through. There we go. All right, this is the hard part. You have to lift up the entire camshaft just with the gear because you have to lift it all in order to line up. I'm just gonna line it up. Oh, awesome. All right, now we just need to install the retainer. That just fell in the oil pan. I can't forgive myself for that. All right, I got it out of the oil pan. I'm gonna put this retainer on here without dropping it again. Nice. Double check, yeah. And then you just need to go, ow. finally. All right, we got the injection lines put on here. We got our fuel shutoff valve put on here, our intake horn put on, and our regulator put on as well. Not to mention the dipstick tube. So now I'm gonna put the front cover on the engine, and we're gonna start putting on all the pulleys and the serpentine belt, and we can finally start working on the transmission then. So anyways, I'm just gonna start getting into it. All right, I'm gonna show you guys how to apply RTV instead of using a gasket. If you guys ever have to use RTV, because not all cars or all engines use gaskets for everything, I highly recommend getting a caulk gun like this and a tube of it, because it helps so much when applying. You can get a nice even bead, super easy, super consistent, super efficient. All right, now that the motor is pretty much completed, I'm gonna start working on the transmission now. So I'm gonna start installing that. So let's just jump right in. All right, now here comes the fun part. The flywheel. I'm gonna have to rest it on the housing. That was really easy, wow. All right, go. All right, so I got all the pressure plate bolts torqued down. Make sure to always do it in a star pattern, otherwise you won't get a proper clamping on the clutch. But now we're all ready to go. We got the transmission on the transmission jack. Time to get this bad boy in there. All right, I've got a minor problem. This cross member is in the way of getting the transmission in, and the only way to fix it is either to cut the floor pan up, which I'm not going to do, or cut this cross member off and build a new one. So what I've learned about this frame on this truck is that it's actually the same as the first gen frames, or at least from the front cab mount forward, with the exception of the cross members. So on the first gens, they have a cross member that goes across under the engine, and that's just what I'm gonna do on this one, and delete that cross member after I install the new one. So I'll bring you guys along. I'm just gonna jump right into building this thing because I'm just wanting to get this thing going, so. All right, so this is the bracket that I've got cut out so far. Again, this is going to mount to the engine mounts. And so I had to cut a relief in the middle, and that's why there's these two brackets. I had these brackets laying around, oddly enough, so these are just gonna work just great. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna drill a hole in here so we can bolt it together. But I had to make a relief because if you think about how this bolt's gonna be on a 45, you actually can't lift the whole bracket up at once because the distance between the end of the bolt is different than at the top of the bolt, which is what the holes are measured for. So I have to cut a relief. That way I can bolt each one individually and then bolt them together like that. So I'm gonna get these drilled out and bolted up and I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. All right, now that I've got the cross member installed, I'm gonna finally cut off the old transmission cross member and finally install the transmission, hopefully. So let's jump right into it. There we are. Now it's starting to go in. All right, now that the transmission and T-case are all bolted together, I can finally install the transmission mount. This cross member came out of a first gen, and it actually lines up perfectly with the frame rails where these bolt holes are. So all I have to do is bolt it to the transmission, drill out these holes, and then bolt it to the frame. This is not original. Back in the day, I actually manual swapped it with my buddy, and this is 3/8 plate that's been drilled to bolt to this, and this is a transmission mount for the ND 4500 or 47RE. All right, I installed the transmission cross member now. I also, while I was under there, installed the starter. I also filled the engine up with oil, and I actually kind of want to get this thing started. I want to see if we can start it right now. I know we are far from drivable, but I just want to see if this thing will start right now and just make sure that the engine's good. I have a temporary fuel system rigged up and a temporary ignition system set up, so we're just going to see if this thing can turn over and start. So obviously that's not a very good sound. I kind of thought it was piston slap at first, but I got a second opinion because it's kind of hard to hear it and while starting it. So I got a second opinion, and we think it was actually a pressure pop. And so I took the valve cover off, and one of the bridges for one of the exhaust valves, I think it was cylinder number 4, was missing, or it fell off. So I put that back on there, and so it makes sense why this would cause that sound, because when you're compressing it, right, like when your piston is compressing upwards and it has all that air that's super compressed, and there's nowhere for it to go, it's going to escape out of the intake, and which was happening. So I got that replaced back on there. I did all my valve adjustments, which is why you should always check your valve flash, always. So anyways, I got that all adjusted, so let's try it again. Well, we kind of got it started. I had to kind of limp it by with some ether. I mean, at least I know the motor's like not inoperable. So here's what the deal. The fittings that I have on there, I had some stuff that I put on there to help seal them, and they're not sealed properly. And so I'm getting air into my fuel, so that's why it's not running exactly properly. Also, I'm leaking oil out of my AFC, which is my air fuel control on my injection pump, which I should not be leaking oil there. So I'm gonna have to address that too. So I was really hoping to get it to start under its own power and like maintain idle, but I guess that's just not gonna happen in this video. So anyways, it's not that big a deal. I think I'm just gonna end it here. I've been putting in a lot of work, and it's just, I think it's a good time to cap it here. So yeah, I guess I'll just catch you guys in the next one. Peace.